Okay, quick question. When is St. George's Day? No, genuinely, don't Google it. Don't cheat. Just do you know when it is off the top of your head? Because I'm sure if I asked a few people randomly this week, I'd get answers ranging from June-ish to is it the one with pancakes, which is kind of expected because we don't get a bank holiday. There's no national ritual. There's no English anthem to sing our hearts to, a point that I will bring up every time I can. I mean, come on, give us our own national anthem. Ugh. But there really is a sense that not much happens to celebrate St. George. Now, to be fair, there are obviously places in this country that do, but they are few and far between. It's just, for most of us, it's the occasional flag outside a pub and this overwhelming feeling that saying you're proud to be English is somewhat a controversial opinion. We've become very uncomfortable with the very qualities that we claim to admire. And the thing is, it wasn't always like this. This is St. George, a man who at one point in our history was so important that kings swore by him, soldiers marched underneath his banner, and his name was used as a literal battle cry. Cry God for Harry, England, and St. George. And now he's mostly a flag that we're just a little bit unsure about. So this episode is part of a little series that I'm doing as part of the eclectic mix that makes up my channel. And this one is on St. George, part of my wider series on the traditions that we've forgotten that helped shape Britain. Because you can't really understand the country just through politics or headlines or whatever fresh hell Westminster's cooked up for us this week. You also have to look at the stories that it kept. And St. George is one of those stories. So, let's start at the beginning. George was not English. He was born in Cappadocia, modern-day Turkey, in the 3rd century, a Roman soldier and a Christian. Under Emperor Diocletian, Christians were persecuted, and George was basically told, renounce your faith or else, and George said, no. And for that, he was tortured repeatedly. And when he still wouldn't back down, he was executed. So let's talk about the dragon, because obviously we need to address it. The famous story, St. George riding in, slaying a beast, saving a princess, that actually comes later, in the medieval period, sometime around the 11th century. And it's not really history, it's symbolism. A town is being terrorized by a dragon. People are sacrificing their children to keep it happy. A princess is next. George arrives, kills the dragon, saves her, and restores order. It's all very cinematic. Now, of course, the story is about confronting evil, about refusing to accept that something destructive just gets to exist unchallenged. And the English love that story. We kept it, we painted it, we built it into churches. It's formed part of the English identity. Sadly, we've just lost the confidence to name what the dragon really is, or worse, we just pretend that there aren't any at all now. So how did this Turkish Roman soldier with a metaphorical reptile problem become England's patron saint? Enter King Edward III in the 14th century. He basically said, yep, that's him, that's our guy, and he made St. George the patron saint of England. Founded the Order of the Garter in his name. Knights wore the Red Cross, armies marched under it. Because back then, St. George represented something very specific. Courage, duty, a belief that some things are worth standing for, even when it costs you. And that belief didn't just stay in the medieval period. 500 years later, during the First World War, there were reports from British troops retreating from Mons of a strange, almost ghostly figure appearing on the battlefield. A figure they said was St. George. Now, whether you take that literally, symbolically, or somewhere in between, I think what matters, in one of the most frightening moments imaginable, when Englishmen were exhausted, overwhelmed, and retreating, they reached instinctively for him. Even the naval commander of the Zeebrugge raid later cited St. George as a source of inspiration. St. George wasn't just a story we told ourselves in comfortable times. He was something people turned to when things felt real, a spiritual presence guiding them. St. George's Day used to be a proper occasion for us. Church bells ringing, feasts, processions through towns. People would wear red roses in their lapels, a little symbol of England, of martyrdom, of something shared. There were plays and pageants and stories acted out in village squares. St. George and the Dragon brought to life with costumes and wooden swords and a little bit of theatrical chaos. So what happened? Why did all of this, the feasts, the meaning, the sense of occasion just fade? Partly thanks to the Reformation. Henry VIII breaks from Rome, and suddenly anything that feels a little bit too sainty gets stripped back. Feast days go, processions go, a lot of that colour and ritual just disappears. And then over time, something else happens. English identity gets folded into British identity. Union Jack over Red Cross, Empire over England. And then sadly, in more recent years, the flag, his flag, has begun to feel like a loaded symbol. Even if it isn't, it's begun to be treated as a divisive image. And at some point, it stopped feeling like a shared symbol and started feeling like something you had to justify. Which is strange because it's literally just the flag of our patron saint. I mean, no other country would be this awkward about celebrating their own patron saint. I don't think that the English have forgotten St. George. I think we got uncomfortable with what we are now told he represents. Because he actually represents conviction. And conviction in modern England is a little bit awkward. We admire it right up until someone actually has it. And now we just reposition Englishness as divisive. But St. George is a man who had something that he believed in. He said, no, I'm not letting it go. Because what do we actually believe in like that anymore? What is our dragon? And do we even agree that it exists? And yet we still want meaning. I mean, you can feel it everywhere. People craving ritual and belonging, wanting tradition to come back, lighting candles, celebrating solstices, baking things that feel like they belong to something older than them. We say we don't care about symbols, but we also feel strangely empty without them. We say that we're beyond saints, but we still want figures who stand for something. And as we see in our real everyday lives, we don't have many individuals in public life who stand for much beyond themselves. Because St. George made me realise we faced dragons before in this country, real ones, difficult ones, and we didn't look away. So maybe the question isn't whether dragons still exist. Maybe it's whether we still have the courage to face them. Because England didn't lose St. George. She just lost the confidence to hold on to what he meant. And maybe that is something worth finding again. So I hope you have a pint of English ale, glass of mead, cider, or whatever you want to have, and toast to our incredible patron saint. Happy St. George's Day to you all.